Hello, everyone. Today is actually International Women's Day, just in case you didn't know. My wife is Romanian, and she reminds me every March 8th that I need to buy her something because in North America, it's not really celebrated much here. And it is 2021. We're here with all my amazing friends, Pamela, Rebecca, Colette, and Amanda. Amanda's driving, so she probably won't be on camera today. But what we have in store today is I recently was reading a really good, I don't know how you would even describe it, blog, Facebook post. I don't know how you really describe it, but and it was called, and I don't even know who wrote it to even give them credit for it. But it's called How Reptilians Hijacked the Matrix. And for
It
all
was
of
anonymous,
Yeah, it was anonymous.
Adam.
So yeah, I know it was anonymous. So I don't know who anonymous is, if it's a person or if it's the Galactic Federation
Yeah,
that released this. I'm not really sure, but um,
yeah.
you all know how much I love the movie The Matrix and how it really woke me up and shook me to my core. And don't get me started on The Matrix because I'll talk about that subject for hours and hours and hours. So I'm not going to go through the entire article. If you want it and you want a copy of it, I'd happy to put the URL in the link down below, and you can definitely read it for yourself. It's probably maybe 5-10 minute read tops. But there's a couple really, really good things in there, and we just really want to talk about it. Because I don't. We were talking before we went live, and one of the things is if you don't know who your enemy is, you're completely blind. And so this call is really just to outline on, who the enemy is. If you're not aware that we are in World War III right now, and basically no bombs, missiles, guns, anything has really gone off, extremely violent, like World War I, World War II. So, how do you know who the enemy is? How do you know who you're fighting? How do you even know that you're in a fight if you're not even sure? And right now, this is the biggest psychological warfare. I think my wife even said to me today, COVID-19 was really an IQ test, and you're still going through it. And if you just stop and just take a look at it, take a step back on it, and just listen to what's being said. One day it's wear a mask, next day it's don't wear masks, next day it's get a vaccine. Oh well, if you get the vaccine, nothing will change anyways. So, but still get the vaccine. Like nothing makes sense, but yet everyone's still following it. So, whatever your choice is, wherever you're going, I mean, I completely respect and admire whatever your decisions are, but just know the facts. And one thing that I was always taught when I grew up was my mom always said, before you sign a contract, before you sign anything, make sure you read it, but not only read it, but understand what each of the lines mean. And I'm just going to really ask that you do the same thing. You do your own research. You know what's in the vaccines if you want to take the vaccine or don't want to take the vaccine. Just don't take it because your doctor or the mainstream media is saying that everyone should take it. Otherwise, you can't travel. If you honestly believe that, then take it. If I don't believe that's the truth, but that's for me. That's my decision. That's what I've decided to do. So one of the things that is in here is this paragraph says the benevolent forces of the Federation also knew that the reptilians were the best species to initially seed the Earth for survival purposes, since that is what their primary consciousness is built around. On a planet that was so rapidly changing, they needed a being who could adapt quickly to the harsh climate transitions on Earth. After millions of years of observation, a select few dinosaur genetics were granted and chosen to evolve into a more humanoid form. From that, were capable of holding higher consciousness. So, for me, what that's really saying is that when Earth was first forming, they put these reptilian forces here, which are the dinosaurs, and then they transitioned their DNA and gave them a little bit more to see what would happen to their species. How do you guys sort of read that initial first paragraph, or what do you guys sort of think about that? Do you think that's true, not true? I just, want some insight from each of you.
I find it interesting because, like, one of the things and you find a lot, they talk about the reptilian brain that we have, and so how would we have a reptilian brain if there wasn't some kind of a DNA piece to that? And I've heard often, I've never seen it happen, but I've actually heard that our body has the ability to regrow itself, to heal,
Ooh,
and like limbs can be regrown, organs can be redone naturally, which again is a reptilian ability.
that's a good point. I,
Yeah, that is
I know
interesting.
for a fact that there have been people on planet Earth that have regrown limbs. I've heard actual stories of much older people, who lost their secondary teeth. You get your baby teeth and then your secondary teeth. They might lose a molar and it grew back, even though they were old in human terms.
Mm.
Anything's possible. I've even heard of people having organs that were extremely damaged and kaput, totally fixed. Anything's possible. We have amazing abilities. But that whole reptilian brain thing intrigued me when I found out about it because it kind of explains a lot. If it's, I always think of the reptilian, I'm afraid of snakes, I don't like them. And reptiles can be very vicious, and humans can be very vicious. And I always equate that to the reptilian part of their brain when they're being hateful or mean or really, really difficult. And it's almost like you have to overcome that aspect of yourself if you want to connect with source energy, God, and have dominion and be sovereign. It's a lot of work to figure out how to get there because, of course, we're born into this dimension without any memory of our past lives. We have to work to start to understand that we're eternal and that we have always been, and that if we want to just focus on good, we can manifest good. But it's always a mixture in this three-dimensional world because there's always something happening that tends to be on the dark side too. But we can always overcome it, is my philosophy.
Mhm. It's really funny because it makes a lot of sense to me because I always wondered, like, where did the dinosaurs even come from? Like, why were they here? And then how are humans here? Like that whole disconnect between the two. So I feel like that kind of merges the two together. And then a while back, I was doing some healing on people, and what kept coming up was reptilians. And they kept showing up and they were attached to people, and I had to keep releasing them. But these reptilians, and they were causing some problems in their lives. And the interesting part about it is, I think Adam and I both kind of found it out together that they just wanted recognition. They wanted recognition because, we had been a reptilian in the past, in a past life, and they stayed back, and we got lighter and lighter, and they just wanted as like a thank you and to show gratitude towards them. So we did that because we kept asking, like, can we release you, can we release you? And they kept saying no, no, no. And we kept saying, well, what are we missing? What is it that we're missing? And that was it. That they just wanted us to say thank you so much for your part in my growth, and that's all they wanted. And then we were able to release them back to the light. So that was pretty amazing.
Colette, how about you? How did you sort of view that?
Well, it's interesting to me because I've never heard like this theory before. So it's something just like completely new to me that like humans evolved from dinosaurs or you know things like that. And so I was actually just Googling it, and it said that there was 65 million years between when the dinosaurs lived and when the first humans were here. And so I guess that's enough time for the dinosaurs to evolve. Um, But everything you guys are saying makes sense to me, with the reptilian brain. Obviously it took us a long time to get this way, if you believe in evolution. So yeah, it's all just like new to me. So I'm just kind of taking it in. It's interesting.
Okay. The next paragraph I want to focus in on is really interesting to me. And it says the reptilians themselves were also puppets in the hierarchy of control who became slaves of the satanic forces when they became consumed by artificial intelligence in their genetic alteration timeline. The native reptilian had become a prisoner to the Archon agenda through the corruption of AI. These reptilians aren't technically archons, they are just servants to the archonic force Lucifer, as described in the, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Justonic scriptures. So these reptilians assisted in hijacking our matrix to create a firewall for humans so they could exploit people for their energy like batteries and eventually corrupt us with their technologies as it did with them long ago. What do you guys think about that one?
I think you better stay away from the AI stuff if you want to be a human that has divine powers, because that's where the transhumanists are trying to lead us. The people that work at Silicon Valley are really big into putting a computer chip in the brain to make us, very intelligent in certain areas. It would be like having Google in your head. You could just Google it up and figure out how to be a fabulous chef, dancer, artist, anything you want. But at the same time, I believe in the divine connection, and I think that could really mess it up. And you could ultimately become just a computerized human, a robot. And you wouldn't care because you wouldn't notice it. Just like people that are asleep don't really care because they don't really notice they're asleep. I'm talking about spiritually asleep. But once you wake up, you know that you used to be asleep and you don't want to go back there. And I think it's the same thing with AI. Why would you want someone manipulating your whole divine being? I mean, that to me is evil. I'll let that happen. But I'm also an anti-vaxxer. I would never inject myself with something that I've heard too many stories that could be little nano fibers in there that could hook us up to the matrix even more than we would like to be. So you just have to be very aware of what these evil types are trying to do. And maybe we have been controlled by very evil people on this planet. More and more evidence is coming out that has been the case, shockingly enough. And I think a lot of very shocking things are going to be disclosed in the near future to the general public that a lot of us know about, but the average person is clueless.
Yeah, this is like so interesting to think about, because if you think about it from the other perspective, I mean, already in San Diego, like 1 million people have gotten vaccinated, which means 1 in 3 people in my city is vaccinated. And that blows my mind. So what like the people, the light workers, the people that don't jump on this, right? Because look how easy it is to convince people to do these things untested, right? They just make it sound really good. They use like marketing tactics like shortage, like that FOMO, fear of missing out, things like that. So I mean, it sounds cool, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna have like a Google chip, I'm gonna know all this stuff. And it's like, first of all, do you really need to know everything?
Right.
Like, is that really necessary to know like facts? But it's like, yeah, what's gonna happen to the people that don't get this? Right? Like, who just stay, quote unquote, naturally human, and then we're surrounded by all of these bots, humanoid bots or whatever they're going to be called. But it's interesting because I've been hearing about this too, about like, that's why they're trying to get rid of gender, because, AIs don't have gender and they're going to try to make them citizens.
Oh, interesting.
And, yeah. And so they're starting the conditioning for us to get rid of genders because of that, which I thought was an interesting thing. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, because I can see like a lot of people thinking it's a great idea, and considering how quick people are to jump on an untested vaccine, I can see people jumping on like, oh, I can like have artificial whatever, that sounds amazing. So
well, even today on my car radio, I heard them say here in Massachusetts, if you've gotten a vaccination, you can go now hang out with your friends who have all had vaccinations without a mask on. Now, isn't that a treat? What they're telling you is, if you haven't had a vaccination, you're not going to be socializing with anyone. They're doing, you can see the programming that but that's very interesting about the gender thing. I'd never heard that. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's scary. I didn't even think of that, but that's a very good point. I honestly thought that they were trying to promote gay and lesbian couples more to read us out, not for that reason, because if everyone's gay and lesbian, we're not reproducing anymore. So that was a theory where I sort of thought it was going, and that's why they're also encouraging transgender to get rid of their if they were born a female and they want to go male, they're encouraging it, so because they don't have the reproductive organs to actually do it, right? And so that's what I sort of thought, that's where they were going with it. But that's a good point that you made, Colette. Pamela or Amanda? Go ahead.
Well, if you no, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, go ahead.
Pamela, Amanda?
One of the things that I was reading a while back, and I actually saw it on YouTube too, but there are children that, I'm thinking it's in Japan, I could be wrong, but somewhere it's in the East, where they basically can learn an entire book, basically through osmosis. They're not reading the book, they're just absorbing the energy of the book and the knowledge. So we have the ability to learn. And it's like, even they said that with Einstein, we don't use a percentage of what our brain is capable of. So but it's like when you're a kid growing up, nobody tells you you can't do anything. You're encouraged to try things, and whatever you want to do, you can become. But then there's that age that you hit school, that all of a sudden it has to be done this way. This is the only right way to do something. And so it's like it's bred out of you or trained out of you, that natural curiosity, that natural ability to learn and adapt.
Well, typically education has always taught us how to think, not how to think, but what to think. Mm-hmm. And if you go to spiritual teachers and people that teach the Silva Ultramind training, like I've taught, it's how to think, which is a big difference. Mm-hmm. And if the educational system had really grasped that concept, that it's important to develop individual creativity and talents rather than just doing this cookie cutter religion, not just religion, but education thing, we could all be using our gifts in a much more exciting, developed way. But
what's that quote by Einstein? What does he say? We're all born geniuses and we're taught to be idiots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that how? I can't remember exactly how it goes.
Similar, yeah.
Something that's what he would say. Yeah, because he knew that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And if you just really think about it, that's so true. And it's totally right. I mean, if we were all put in a situation where we were able to excel with our gifts, not what they tell us our gifts are, but really allow us to exploit our gifts, you think about where this world could be. You think about where things, you know, how much self-confidence you would have in yourself. You think about all the times that, you know, you were made to feel bad in school because you got a low mark. And then you go home and you see your parents and they get all upset with you. Why are you failing? Why are you this? Why are you that? And, you know, I mean, that's the nice parents. I mean, there's some parents that, I mean, just rip on their kids, and think about what that does and how that destroys their self-confidence and how scarred they become because of it. Like, I mean, I don't know. I know that, you know, when we ascend, we're going to see this world, and I can see this world already. I can see the pictures of this happening already. And if you can't see it, then you need to change your frequency. You change that station that you're on, because honestly, it's the things that I'm seeing and picturing and experiencing, especially through meditation. It's out of this world awesome. Amanda, anything for you on that one?
Well, you brought up some really great points, Adam, about, you know, the schooling, and I loved how Rebecca talked about, you know, our talents, and we all have our own special gifts and talents, and it's unfortunate that, you know, I call it mainstream schooling, you know, really downplays that, and a lot of the kids are not allowed to play around with it. And I just met up with a guy that I went to school with, and he, you know, we found each other on Facebook again, and, you know, we went to, like, you know, middle school, or elementary, middle school, and high school together. And he was talking about how refreshing it is to know me now as an adult and what I post on Facebook, because he says he doesn't get to have those kind of conversations too often. And he would talk to me about, you know, when he was younger, that he, you know, he said he couldn't wait to go to bed at night because he would astral travel and he would, you know, lucid dream all the time. And it was exciting for him, but he didn't get to, he just thought it was normal. Everybody did that. He didn't know that it wasn't, you know. And he said he always felt kind of like an outsider. And I think a lot of these kids that get in trouble a lot, who aren't understood, are those starseed angel kids that are here to shake things up because they have seen things, you know, from a different perspective. And they're not allowed to express themselves in school, you know, because you'll be looked at weird, or that's not the right thing, or, you know, you have to, I don't know if you guys have seen, and I know Colette, she's into teaching right now, but when I went to school to be a teacher, and I have I have 3 college degrees, the math that they were teaching was like, wait a second, why can't we just ask the kids, what's 44 plus 44? You know what I mean? You had to do it by the 10s and then do it by the 1s. But it was just the way, I can't remember, maybe Colette remembers the name of it right off. Do you know, Colette? Because I'm trying to think of what they call it right now. Was like blocking. So you're blocking off everything by, like, so, you know, when we were growing up, we just say 44 and then under 44, you know, and we just add it. But they don't want them to do it like that anymore. They have to, like, totally break it apart and then put it back together, which takes so much more time. So just things like that, they're changing a lot, even in the school system, that doesn't make a lot of sense to us adults. And a lot of times the kids are coming home and asking, like, hey, you know, Mom, can you help me with my math? And I'm like, oh, I went to school to be a teacher, and sometimes I still can't help them. I'm like, I have no idea what this even is. I'm so sorry. And I've taken calculus. You know what I mean? It's beyond me. So I don't know if anyone else has had that experience, but it can be a little challenging.
With my niece, she's graduating this year, but a few years ago, their math, they were estimating everything. And my brother's like, I'm sorry, if someone's building me a house, I don't want them estimating. I want them to know how to measure and add. But they
do estimation, and then they call guesstimation. They're just guessing. I'm just gonna guess.
If you're building me something, I want exact measurements. I don't want a guess of what it's gonna be.
Exactly.
Well, this actually goes into the next paragraph. And it says and I don't know how to pronounce this word, if it's gnostics or gnostics, but
Gnostic.
Gnostics, the G silent.
okay, Gnostics explain the matrix illusion hijacked by the archonic forces purposely dumb down the global population through continuous deceit so they can trick us into integrating with AI. This is very prevalent in today's chaotic world, where they are forcing people to stay at home and will unleash their virtual reality system to capture the mind of the masses through their trivial entertainment purposes. Their agenda to fully amalgamate the human mind with artificial intelligence by 2030 is a simple choice. Don't fall for it.
You know what this reminded me of, Adam? And I know everybody here has read Outwitting the Devil, and he talks about drifting. And it's like, that's what they're doing. They're bringing people to that point of drifting.
Yes, that's a good point. And think about it, when you're stuck at home, you know, you're relying on what you can get on your computer, and they're banning a lot of certain movies and books because they're not politically correct anymore. I mean, it's crazy. You can see how people are just being forced into thinking a certain way, whether they like it or not, because they're not getting. I mean, you can still get it if you dig and dig, but it's not on the surface.
Well, Rebecca, you make a really good point, and I remember one thing that Donald Trump said when he was president. He said, "We want to give you the right to choose," and I think that means way more now than it did back then. It makes much more sense.
He knew exactly what their agenda is. And, you know, unfortunately, people have been so hypnotized and mind controlled for the past decades, they can't snap out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colette, anything for you on that one?
I mean, yeah, again, it makes sense of like, you know, kids' detention spans are so much lower than they used to be. You know, I think people can only pay attention now for like a minute or something. It used to be like 30 minutes that people could pay attention to something. So because everything is so quick and we're so just like bombarded with information, attention spans are very limited now. And people just want to be entertained and distracted. So that's the other thing. Like, we've been so brainwashed to not feel, or to think of feelings as bad things, or feelings are problems. So this goes along with all of that too, right? Because AIs don't have, I mean, they're trying to program with feelings, but naturally they don't have feelings. And so we've been programmed not to feel our feelings. And so I think that's just like one thing that's super important, because that's what makes us humans, is we feel things. And so it's just important to embrace like all sides of ourselves, because you know, with all of this conditioning, we've been taught like there's something innately wrong with us. I think most people, I would say like 98% of the population thinks that there's something wrong with them, and they've chosen to separate from themselves. And so there's just like this loneliness, and it's like all conditioning. All of that stuff is just conditioning. It's not natural. Little kids aren't born thinking they're not good enough. You know, you look at a little kid and they're like, I can do anything. Right. And so it's conditioned by society. And because of all of these things, people are looking for distractions. And so what do people do to distract themselves? They drink, they party, they do drugs, they numb themselves, they watch TV, they Google things, they go online. So it only makes sense to cause like people enough pain that they'll do anything to get out of it, or like, you know, to condition them to be in pain and isolated. And then of course they're going to choose to get these chips and things, because that's their escape. And of course they can't wait. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next thing says, by choosing the light, we could eject ourselves out of the narrow width frequency of control and manipulation by deactivating or ignoring our reptilian brain. So what is the Matrix, and how has it been manipulated to control us? The Matrix, according to the Gnostics, is a simulation of a virtual reality world that is purely holographic. The Matrix itself can also make something appear to happen when in fact it doesn't. It's merely a projection. What do you guys think about that? True, false?
That reminds me of the movie Jupiter Rising or Jupiter Ascending.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't we getting to the point now where we've seen it with, they've got masks that can completely change someone's appearance. They've got holograms where you think you're looking at a person and you're not, it's a hologram. They can, it started, I remember in the modeling industry, they started making models look really thin, even if they weren't. You didn't even have to be thin anymore to be, because they could, with computers, make you look like anything. They can change your voice if you're a singer. I used to know people that worked in the sound studios in New York, and they said, we can make anyone sound good. That's why there's so much lip syncing. Nothing. So what is real after a while? It's all just a giant illusion, and it's getting more and more and more like that. I mean, they're saying there may be an alien UFO invasion, and it could all be done holographically. We wouldn't even know. That could be coming.
Yeah, there is something called Project Bluebeam that I've read, which is they're going to fake an alien attack to say aliens are evil and look at what they're doing. They're destroying our cities, and it's just they're piloted by human beings that are actually piloting these fake UFOs that they've reconstructed. Einstein is the one that said we live in a friendly universe. So just know that and remember that if you believe that aliens will actually attack us, then you're falling victim into what they've led you to believe. And they've been trying to do it through movies for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Well, and there's even proof now. Remember that it's now public that he couldn't put knowledge now, but like when they were doing the atom bombs and stuff, how the aliens came down and disintegrated some of the nuclear bombs and stuff to prevent mankind from destroying itself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if they had wanted to destroy us, it would have happened a long time ago. But people fall into that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, from the best of my knowledge, from what I understand, is all the nuclear weapons have been disabled in the entire world. So there's not one. So they say it, they use it as fear, but from what I understand, the aliens have deactivated all of them. So no one can use them. So just one more quick thing, and there's lots more to this, by the way. I've skipped over a lot of it, talking about Saturn and the moon and all sorts of different things. So if you're really interested in that, you can definitely read into it. But just to sum this all up, it's our choice whether these get switched on or not through our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. Do not fall victim to mainstream narratives that you need to be upgraded so that you can become a more useful part of society. When you become the light, you restore your genetics back to the real you, the essence of your core, your soul being. Only then, with enough light, you can break through the firewall of the matrix and out of the control of Lucifer's influence. Don't get sucked into the drama. Keep vibrating high. Send love and light to all. We got this. To infinite and beyond. And the author's unknown, so I don't know who actually wrote this, but what do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, my belief is that there are many people on this planet who actually worship the devil, Lucifer, Satan, whatever you want to call it. And they're very evil, and they like to manipulate, and they're all doing it for power, fame, sex, whatever. But if you are a light worker and you work on the side of the light, you don't want any part of that. And you're not tempted, and you won't sell your soul. And then you will have the kind of power that is eternal, that will protect you, take care of you moment to moment. You'll have inner peace, and you won't be afraid. You won't have anxiety. Where a lot of these rats that we're seeing that have been doing some really evil things to mankind, I think they're scared to death right now because they know their days are numbered. Yeah. That's the way I see it.
And in my world, the light wins.
Yes.
In my world, the light's already won.
Me too. We've already won.
Yeah.
And now we have to shine the light so everybody else can follow.
Right.
I'm reading this interesting book, and it's about relationships, but I think it's pertinent to this discussion. But basically what this guy was saying is most counselors, when you're wanting to break up with somebody and you go see the counselor, they want you to talk about all your problems. Okay, let's talk about what's going wrong. Let's talk about, all of your past things. And this guy says, like, no, just let the past go, let the past be the past, and start focusing on enjoying your relationship, focus on enjoying each other. And I think that's pertinent to any relationship, not just like a romantic relationship, is just start enjoying the people that you're around, have grace and forgiveness. Hurt people. And so he had this example of this teenager who was in juvenile hall and nobody could reach him, but he was court ordered to see this therapist. And the therapist, what he did was, the kid wouldn't talk, and so the therapist was a little scared at like the first couple of days because this guy was so menacing looking, but he's like, I'm just going to use the time to talk to this kid. And so he started just saying, you can change your thoughts at any time. You can change your emotions at any time. You can, you're not stuck. And that's the beautiful thing about being humans, is we're not stuck. We're not trees. We don't have to stay in a situation we don't like. And we can change at any moment. And so the kid, after like a ton of sessions of listening to this guy share the message of hope and renewal, and he like all of a sudden like got it. And he turned his whole life around. He got a job. And it was only because this guy like got through to him that, hey, like, yeah, you're going down this path. And the kid's like, I'm hopeless. Like, you should give up on me. Like, I can't change. And the guy's like, of course you can change. And so it finally, after so many sessions, just got through to him. And so to me, that was such a beautiful story of how easy it is, no matter how evil or wrong, like as a human, the things that people are doing because they're hurt. People are trying to get power and hurt other people because they feel inadequate. And so to me, it's like we need to keep doing what we're doing and spread this message of light, spread this message of hope that, it's just your thoughts. Thoughts aren't real. They're in our heads. We created them and we can change them at any moment. And just keep spreading that. And so that people know, like, it doesn't have to be as miserable and sad and lonely and all the things that we've been conditioned to think is permanent. To depression's a permanent, but there's people that hold on to that so tightly, like, oh, I'm depressed. And I have talked to people like this, and it's like they defend the depression. They defend like whatever some doctor told them or diagnosed them with. They're like, no, I have this. It's like, yeah, you might, but you can always change it. So anyway, I just think that's so important to remember and to keep spreading the light into the world.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think I was having this conversation with just Amanda the other day is, I have this vision of after the ascension happens, for those of you that watch Star Wars, and it's at the end of the movie and they have this big parade and, you're like on this massive galactic stage and you're getting these medals for going through this war that we've been going through for so long. And it's just like, people, other beings are up to us and tell us the story about Earth and everything you went through. And now that we can actually remember because we're out of the matrix and we're out of this vibration that they've been trying to create to have us not remember things purposely. And now that we're starting to break through it and we're starting to the matrix is slowly starting to break apart. They're getting scared. They are really getting scared, and they're starting to run and they don't know what to do. And like I said, I know the light's already won. I already feel it. And everything that I feel it's happening right now is them playing out the plan to try to wake people up and try to shock them even more to what's going on. I mean, if you even look at what, and I don't even believe this is true, but they said that Biden canceled one of Trump's executive orders that if there was any pedophiles in the United States that were illegal aliens, that they were shipped out of the country immediately. No court, no nothing. If they were convicted of a pedophile, they're just out. And Biden canceled that executive order. I mean, if you're not pissed at Biden for canceling that, I mean, honestly, you are dead asleep, because you should be like screaming at the top of your lungs. Just think about if that was your child that happened to, and this person who was illegally entered into your country that you pay taxes for, now all of a sudden gets to stay under this executive order that Biden signed to get rid of Trump. I think it's called Project Talon, if I'm not mistaken of the name, but he just canceled that. He just rejected it. So if you're not pissed at Biden for that, I mean, honestly, just, grab a blanket and close your eyes and go back to sleep, because you are just not plugged into the truth right now on what's going on. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming, watching, listening. I hope you liked it. If you want more of the article that we're referring to, I'll happily share the link in down below. Comment, like, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it. And if you want to hear some more, I mean, I could probably talk for hours on this subject. I love this subject. So everyone have a good night and happy International Women's Day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.